Before I start this jaw-dropping story, let me tell you, what happens here will leave you stunned, because in a world where money and privilege often silence truth, one young black boy turned humiliation into a moment of pure justice that made an entire cabin freeze. So make sure you subscribe right now, hit the bell icon, and stay with me till the end, because this story will not only shock you, but also inspire you. The first-class cabin of a luxury flight buzzed softly with quiet conversations, clinking, glasses, and the hum of privilege. But all that shifted the moment a 14-year-old black boy named Jordan sat confidently in seat 1A, dressed in a sharp navy suit with a calmness that puzzled everyone around him. Among the passengers was Margaret Whitmore, a wealthy white woman, who stared at him with disbelief, whispering that he didn't belong in first class, and insisting to the flight attendants that there must have been a mistake. Her voice grew. Louder, her face red with outrage as she declared, "This boy can't afford this! He shouldn't be here!" Passengers turned, some embarrassed, some curious, until Jordan calmly removed his headphones, looked her straight in the eyes, and with a voice that carried both innocence and authority, said, "Ma'am, I own the airline." The cabin fell into stunned silence. Margaret froze, her lips parting but no words coming out, the diamond necklace on her chest suddenly feeling heavier than gold chains of shame. The flight attendant double-checked Jordan's ticket, saw the platinum owner's code, and suddenly her eyes widened. This wasn't just a rich passenger, this was the son of the man who had bought the airline, the boy who had grown up not in mansions of fantasy, but in boardrooms where billion-dollar deals were signed. Whispers spread through the cabin like wildfire, phones discreetly recording as Margaret shrank into her seat, humiliated, while Jordan leaned back casually, opening a book on economics as if nothing had happened. The silence wasn't just awkward, it was history unfolding at 35,000 feet, and no one could believe what they had just witnessed. As the plane soared into the skies, the tension inside the first-class cabin only grew heavier for Margaret's. Humiliation was far from over, and Jordan's truth was only beginning to unravel. Some passengers kept sneaking glances at him, whispering to one another, trying to figure out whether this young boy was bluffing or whether the unshakable calmness in his voice carried the weight of reality. Margaret, embarrassed but stubborn, leaned toward her husband and muttered bitterly, "He's lying. He must be lying. There's no way a child like that owns an airline." But at that very moment, the lead flight attendant received a call from the captain and hurried over with an expression of awe and nervous respect. She crouched slightly beside Jordan and said, "Mr. Jordan, the captain sends his regards and wishes to thank you for flying with us today. He asked if you would like to visit the cockpit later during the flight." The stunned passengers gasped softly, while Margaret's face drained of color, her certainty cracking like thin ice under pressure. Jordan smiled politely, nodded, and replied, "Please tell the captain I'd be honored, but I'm fine here for now." It was then that Jordan reached into his satchel and pulled out a sleek black folder embossed with the airline's golden crest, flipping it open to reveal official documents, his father's trust, the shareholders' agreement, and proof of ownership that not only showed his family's control of the airline, but his own inheritance as the primary successor. A businessman sitting across from him, who had initially looked down on Jordan, leaned forward and muttered in disbelief, "Good Lord, he wasn't kidding." Phones clicked quietly, recording every moment, for the internet would soon feast on this scene of poetic justice. Margaret, humiliated beyond words, tried to save face by laughing nervously and saying, "Well, isn't that sweet? A little boy playing big business?" But her voice trembled, betraying the fear underneath, because deep down she realized the world she thought she controlled was slipping. Jordan, however, didn't lash out, didn't raise his voice, didn't show arrogance. Instead, he leaned back in his seat and, with the wisdom of someone twice his age, said quietly enough for everyone to hear, "Privilege doesn't mean you belong. It means you've been trusted to act with dignity." Maybe it's time you learned that. The words cut through the cabin sharper than any blade, and for the first time in her life, Margaret sat in silence, stripped of her imagined superiority, while the other passengers began to see Jordan not as a boy, but as a symbol of a new generation rewriting the rules of power. But the story didn't end at landing. It only grew louder. When the flight touched down in London Heathrow, the events of that single journey had already gone viral across social media, as clips of Margaret accusing Jordan were shared millions of times, often paired with the moment his calm voice declared, "I own the airline." News outlets rushed to cover the story, from CNN to BBC, spinning it as a defining moment in the conversation about race, privilege, and generational wealth. Outside the terminal, reporters swarmed, eager to get a glimpse of the boy who had silenced arrogance with truth. Margaret tried to rush past the crowd, covering her face with her shawl, but the world had already seen her, and her name quickly became synonymous with shame in headlines across the globe. Jordan, escorted by the airline's executives, walked calmly through the terminal, answering a few questions with the same grace he had shown on the plane. "I wasn't trying to prove anything," he told a reporter. "I just wanted to travel peacefully. But sometimes life gives you a stage to speak a truth bigger than yourself." His words resonated, spreading faster than wildfire, igniting debates not only about racism in air travel, but about the changing face of power in society. Later that evening, in a private suite overlooking the London skyline, Jordan's father, a self-made billionaire who had risen from poverty, embraced him proudly, saying, "Son, today you didn't just defend yourself. You defended everyone who's ever been told they don't belong." Jordan's eyes glistened, but he replied humbly, "I only spoke the truth, Dad. That was enough." Meanwhile, Margaret's world crumbled as the backlash reached her family's business empire, with contracts canceled and sponsors pulling away, all because her arrogance had been exposed in front of millions. Justice didn't come with anger or revenge. It came with the simple, undeniable power of truth spoken at the right moment. By the end of the week, Jordan's story was everywhere. TikTok edits, YouTube breakdowns, late-night talk shows, all celebrating the boy who turned a cruel accusation into a global lesson. And for those who watched that viral clip, the final image burned brightest. A young black boy, calm in his first-class seat, teaching the world that real power is not loud, not boastful, but carried with dignity, grace, and the courage to say, "I own the airline."